got it. Okay, Michael, you got it.
Welcome everyone to Tech School. My name is Michael Wood, founder of Never Forgotten Media, and I want to thank you for your time and your attention today. We have an amazing speaker on deck, looking at emerging startups, and it's really important in any aspect, not only just businesses but small projects. I do a lot of media creation for clients, and many a times we approach each project as a startup and using business model canvas and things like that. One of the things I actually used it for is we have an open house for a brand new podcast studio. So using the same model with the business canvas of partnerships and revenue streams. So if you are free, I'll put a link in the chat later. We have an open house tomorrow from noon to 6 p.m. here in Vista, California. So if you're in the local area, stop by. We got some free prizes. But beyond that, let's get into the meat of everything. And so I'm going to hand it over to Curling. Curling comes with amazing experience, not only leading us, in mentorship and tech school, but just every day down to the nuts and bolts of just helping founders and startups get where they need to go. So without further ado, Curling.
All right. Actually, I think you got to be on that welcome committee all the time. That was great. I One thing I was gonna say, Michael, though, offhand too, about Never Forgotten Media. Is there something else you would like to talk about that at all, or anything that's up and coming on that? I'm just curious.
So I'm
I,
gonna read.
I always think, because you're a veteran. Thank you for your service, and I always say, Never Forgotten Media was part of that service too outside. So that's why I brought that up.
So as a Marine Corps veteran, and I did nothing with media creation or film or video in the Marine Corps. I was a logistics transportation guy, but we I I was working with Wounded Warriors and saw how storytelling, how helping clients solve their problems really gave them a new purpose. And so for me, that it was a pivot in my career. It was a pivot in my future. And so I started my company to help Wounded Warriors get vets on set. And so the same thing happens with clients every day. And so depending on wherever they're at, and okay, we need a commercial, so that's a different conversation than somebody walks in and is like, I want to start a blog, and start doing podcasting, and I got a couple $100, and or I have no money at all, so now it's like bootstrapping. And so Never Forgot Media just really helps each client. Instead of saying, okay, here's a price, take it or leave it. If we can't help, there's plenty of other contractors or teams or production crews that I work with that I definitely hand it over or get them connected. And it's all about community. We're in San Diego. I mean, it's the best place in the world to be. And so just helping each other grow, especially in the startup space, is it's my jam. So
And thanks for all the mentoring. I got this mic because Michael was like, okay, you gotta get good sound, and
yeah,
so
you can have great visuals, and
right.
even this is questionable, but my own stuff today. But if you have horrible sound, it's hard to listen.
That's
People,
it.
the viewers will forgive you if your video is not that great, but focus on getting sound good, and then you can grow from there.
I love it. I knew you were gonna give that one tip. That's solid. What we did last week too for everyone was that Professor Clark wanted to go over business model canvas, and go over business models, just because over the last, I could say, the course of about 6 months, we've been both getting a lot of different questions about business models. Even Fokcus, we've been working with a group in Korea, groups in Africa, and even some of the U.S. groups. They all needed to change their business model to make it work even in this kind of, think of it, this environment, right? So I said, Professor Clark, can you do like a little series just on how people can understand business models, how they work, and maybe let's use something that's very, I call it like a tool, called Business Model Canvas. At USC, we use Business Model Canvas a lot, and it helped a lot of groups at least get feedback on what they're trying to do. We're gonna. John Appendages was very gracious on saying, "Hey, I have this company. I'll fill out my business model canvas, and then me and Professor Clark can talk about it, go over it, and maybe give her some feedback. We'll do that in a minute. But I did have just this generic Facebook business model canvas, and thanks for bringing that link up, Michael. I'm gonna put it under the YouTube video too. I'm gonna just share out this one Facebook business model canvas. What was great, that Michael, that you were here too, is that you actually are part of that kind of creators that Joanna Pantages is kind of talking about. She's trying to reach out to creators, so it's kind of good. You can give her some feedback too, if that's fine. Once we start that part of the program, but this business model canvas is just a Facebook. It's actually a simple one, but it came up with some of the basic practices, especially for tech type of startups, right? So you'll see here if we just go to customer segment, you have users, and sometimes we don't put in customer segment users because they're not paying, but when you're using business model canvas, you can put it in there too, just because it works well when you're doing these kind of personas, right? So the users at Facebook usually are posting things to families and things of that nature, but the people that actually are paying are the advertisers. So we have this kind of piece here, and sometimes we actually call this like multi-sided market. And then when we go to this kind of like value proposition part, that's really just simple, saying what can we do to make these group love what we do, right? And for users, we just pretty much connect them with friends. This is actually really important because I found out earlier on with Facebook, even though they started off at like this kind of university one, when you bring your friends involved, it's a great way to create this kind of network effect, right? If you have more and more of your friends on a platform, or more people who are similar on your platform, you're going to be on their active daily user. You're going to be on there longer. So this was a crucial piece of their value proposition, that you can invite people. You can invite people that you know. Second piece for advertisers, the value proposition was pretty much making this relevant for them, that they could actually target advertisers. My first company was called Net Zero, and our basic model was the fact that advertisers knew exactly what users were doing when they were on the internet and they were on ESPN. We would actually show them a little ad on sports fishing. Like, that's our algorithm. Like, we would target that person on ESPN on sports fishing, or something with jerseys, buy a jersey. So that targeting piece was really great, because we got a lot of people actually understanding, like, this is a really important science for advertisers to be able to target the right people. So getting these two parts right helps this multi-sided type of community. One, helping the users connect, and advertisers to connect to people that they need to. Now, what's in the middle is important for people to kind of know. For users, we use this thing called same-sided network effect. That just means that I really just care about my friends, right? I'm on the same side. That's what's important to me, and I'm gonna make sure that's a really great experience. Facebook does a really good job at that. They have this thing called feeds that people all know about, but that was like a crucial part, that you can see feeds of your family. I don't have to email my mom anymore, or grandma. Like, I just check out her feed. That's great. For advertisers, we call this cross-sided network effects. Why it's cross-sided is that advertisers really don't need to know how many other advertisers are on Facebook. That's not crucial for them. That's not same-sided. But cross-sided means they do care about how many users that were on Facebook. Like, so when Facebook had about 20 users, wasn't that important for advertisers. When they had about 1 million users, it's a little bit more important for them to use Facebook. And then once they reached that kind of like billion users, it's really more important, right? Because they were able to actually have a little bit more of this kind of presence and visibility on what was going on in the world and how to target those groups. So that's the cross-sided network effect, and that's how customer relationships kind of work. You have to kind of use that and understand that. Of course, channels is very important for startups. For Fokcus, and it's like this website, right? Most groups have a website, or maybe like a mobile app too. But most time, some of our startups have been having at least a mobile, let's say mobile friendly website, right? At least you can kind of connect to it and things of that nature. Revenue, as you guys know offhand, that for a lot of groups they have this kind of freemium piece, but for users it is free, but we are giving some of our time, we are giving our data, so we are paying in some sense. For the advertisers is where most of the money comes in, and it's just more ad revenues. There's some other pieces in here too, but I love this simplified fact, and I like actually this business model Canvas one because it simplifies some things, and I think most startups need to somewhat keep it simple first, get people's feedback, and then add to it. I was telling John at Pantages that for Fokcus, I think we did ours about 100 times. We at USC we were part of this kind of program for SBIR and things like that, and you had to keep doing it over again, and you had to have mentors look at your business model canvas and give them feedback even before the pitch deck, and it really helped us at least solidify who our customer segments were, what our value propositions were, and how we were going to make money. That was like the key part. Now on the left side, I don't always talk to people on the left side, but this is fairly simple. It's a tech company, right? So we definitely need to have a platform that's always up, right? We need to have a platform because I don't know if any of you guys ever, but I've never talked to anybody at Facebook, right? It's just been pretty much self-service. So it has to have a platform that could be self-sufficient. Amazon's kind of like that too. Network effects from users. We talked about how important that is. So we have to, in somewhat, make sure that network effect can work. Like I will invite this friend, and you know what? This is another friend that is a friend of a friend. So that network effect, making that easy for the users so that their community gets built up and they'll stay on it longer. That's an important key resource that Facebook did early on. And user preference data. This is probably the most key resource for Facebook. If they don't understand the user's preference, don't understand who they are, or understand how they actually would buy something, then the whole model would break down because advertisers need this user preference data. They need to kind of understand it. And so if you think about it, this is probably the key part of this key resources. And the key activities just support key resources. Having a platform developer, have software developers like little curlings, having a data management like using AWS or servers, making sure that's up 24/7, and make sure there's a content manager, right? Making sure that content and feeds and things of that nature, algorithms, so you're seeing the right feeds, that you're seeing the right things you need to see are there. And lastly, this part about key partners, I think we were talking with John Pantages on this too. You actually could put users as key partners too. You can actually put like, yeah, no, these creators who are actually on Facebook that are making it fun. You can actually put that on there. But these kind of content partners that also are helping out with it are key too, because overall it's content that why people are staying on Facebook, they're staying on Instagram. And lastly, this kind of cost structure. Yes, it took a lot more money back in the days, even with net zero, to actually have servers. Right now, it's fairly efficient. Even for if you're part of Focus, you get AWS credits free, right, for your own data center. Even for your platform design thing, you can house it there. What the main cost structure I found out for startups is just getting that MVP, and then past that MVP, building out that platform. And you might need a development team, a CTO, things of that nature. So that's quickly about Facebook and its business model canvas. I believe Professor Clark is here now. Professor Clark, we do have Joanna. She filled out her business model canvas, and we're gonna share out the screen. But you want to add anything?
No, I think the purpose, part of the reason why we have a simplified canvas like that, right? One is to have the key parts of your business early on. That's we talked about key partners, key activities, key resources, because there's lots more complexity to a business than what we're putting on a canvas. But we need to understand what are the most important things to drive the value propositions to the customers. And so what is essential for your business to operate? There's going to be a lot of other things. When we get into like enterprise level planning and management and so forth, there's thousands and thousands of details that you'll get into. That's not necessarily what the canvas is for. The second is that it's a model, right? And an idea of a model is that we can put variables into the inputs, meaning we can make changes very quickly and see how things, the outputs, how we get our values to our customers. So that's the other part of why we do models versus planning, is because models are designed to have variability and have different inputs going into them, versus a plan where you set your assumptions and you try to operate based on your assumptions. What we found is doing startups is your assumptions are most likely wrong. And so we want to have a model that we work from where we can change those assumptions very quickly, maybe even have a couple of different assumptions we're working from within the model, so we can see what works best. So those are kind of the reasons why we've gone to business model canvases and business models versus like writing business plans. And it's to be flexible, to be adaptable, and to really align what you're trying to do over time. So anyway, just some ideas there.
No, that's good. And it allows people to actually give you some good feedback too, right? If they're really solid at creating a platform or they're really solid at sales, they can just work on those two parts, or customer relationships. Joanna Pantages, I'm going to let you have the floor. We're going to go over at least that right side of it, looking at more the customer segment, relationship, and value proposition. We can kind of go over that, and then maybe that part, and then give you some feedback on that. And then we can move to the next side. I think I have screen sharing ready. Good to see everybody. Trip these on too. I see Burr from FacePop. We got Michael Woods. This is great.
Okay. So I used Canvanizer, and I've never done this before. I don't know if I did it right or not. I just listened to their little instructions.
I like how you color code it.
I tried, and then I did it a little bit too, based on learning from last week and everything. But you get caught up, and I might have added too much information.
What we could do is just zoom in on those first two, like customer segment, customer relationship. We'll zoom in so we can see some of the data there,
Oh, yeah.
and that'd be good.
Okay.
And then
so
you can
this
just
is-
walk us through those first two.
Yeah, let's start with customers and then go to value propositions. Let's do customers, understand what their needs are, and then we'll go to value propositions, talk about the value, meaning how you meet those needs, and then we can build from there.
Okay. Okay, so I think of it as a three-pronged marketplace, with brands being the most important. Creator means content creator. And then, so I start with customer segments then. So the customers mainly would be the brands who want to promote their content or their products. And so there would be small and large, which have slightly different needs. Both want to promote their stuff. Large examples would be like networks or universities that have a lot of press releases, news and items, a lot to promote, and then sub brands within them. And then small brands examples would be startups, fashion designers, filmmakers that maybe have like one press release or have never done one, or some or one item to promote. And then I don't know, do you want me to stop there?
Let's do all three, and then we can just talk about customers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other customers are creators, content creators, people who want to make money creating content in a fast, simple, and fun way. So right now there's a lot. Let's use the example of influencers who can have audiences, or like mini medium module, companies within themselves, kind of their own little startups in their own way. But as far as creating content, like they want to promote things, they like creating content. So it's the modern media model. So let's use the example of a social media influencer, even a micro or nano size. It doesn't matter what size. So those people want to just be able to, their customers, because this gives them a platform to do semi-professional content, interviews, reviews, and then also get paid through promoting whatever products they want to promote, which is really important. The freedom to promote what you want to promote, rather than like, I don't know, doing the back forth about what brands want. This is a different model in that way. Brands, well, anyways, okay. And then the other customer is audience, people who want to know about brands, news and brand news and products easily, fast, in a fun way, not like in a boring, like Cision press release news kind of way. So that's customer segments.
Great. So I feel like we're kind of doing this as a city highlight style, right, Carlin? So maybe we
Yeah, totally see highlight style.
So something that I noticed quickly is that when you were talking about creators and brands, you use the same terminology. You use the word they want to promote something. So when I think of that is our creators and brands, you know, because sometimes when we're starting a business, we don't want to get too much complexity, because we get too much complexity, we try to solve too many different needs, and resources are limited and things like that. I always say you want to be the Amazon of books before you're the Amazon of everything, right? Mm-hmm. You want to focus on one need, maybe early on, one or two or so. You know, you don't want to be able to try to solve everybody's needs all at once, because it's going to be difficult and it's very expensive. So when I heard that as like our creators and brands, just kind of the very, very similar, because to me, a creator is a brand. It's just instead of they're branding themselves a lot of times, and a brand is branding a company. Could you group those two things together?
Yeah, you could.
And you might have, and maybe you can explain, is there a big difference between them, or are they both kind of similar, trying to promote something that they're doing, selling, or something of that nature?
They actually are the same people.
Okay.
And yeah, just one, they have an extra feature. So that would go in a feature subset then. They have the ability to promote or get promoted if they want. So that would be like a feature then. And I could just put them in the same category.
Okay. And then the customer audience is, so that's just, I think we had kind of a discussion. It seems like part of this customer segment is really focusing on how we help people promote themselves or their brand. But the audience one seems very different in terms of how you would provide a service to them.
And then maybe I'm not, so I just remove them.
But I think they're necessary within this, and this maybe goes to a little bit to what Curling was saying as they're starting. Like, is the audience necessary as users? Right? Is that because instead of a customer, they're more likely a user? They're not paying for the service; they're really just coming to see what brands and creators are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that's just a thought. So you don't have to change anything right now, Joanna. Just kind of think. Anyway, let Curling and others respond and see what they think. Maybe.
Well, I did like how you guys clarify that brand and creators, because Joanna, I always have I like how you actually said they're all going to be creators, but they'll have different features. That's great, right? Because then we can just talk about personas within that customer segment, right? That was just great. Even when Facebook have advertisers, there's all these different advertisers and different personas and different features that they have. So I love how you guys clarify that. The one thing I had, thing that I did like seeing on it is when you did do this kind of persona, large brands and small brands, which was great. Like the larger ones, the businesses, the universities. I love how you put small brands, startups, fashion designers, things like that. It is good to maybe even put that on there. You can even just put, like, instead of explaining it, you can just put customers, and you could put like a bullet point, universities, right? Businesses, small brands, startups, fashion. Like it's good to do that too, just when people are giving you feedback, like, oh, what are the brands? Okay, just give them some sort of something that they can kind of anchor on. That'd probably be the best way. So I did like how you did that part. And then everything else, I think Professor Clark was dead on that piece.
Yeah, I was going to say, I see Michael might have a good, when he thinks of brands and creators, how does he put those together?
Yeah, that's a good one.
So what I like here is really what you're trying to look at the target audience, for your customer segments and sort of identifying what that is. So what I do like is when you're talking about creators and brands, a creator is somebody that is they're the means of production, so they're creating most all the content, whereas bigger brands, they have teams of people, so understanding the concepts of those roles is good. um, and like Professor Clark mentioned, I think really focusing on one at the very beginning. So in any media, we focus on the audience, that aspect, or that target audience, but really what you're trying to do is find your biggest fan very quickly, and solve their problems. So identifying what model, what customer is your primary. Is it the big brand? Is it the smaller brands? Is it that creator? I think that will, you know, do that one really well. And then that way they become your platform announcing of like, hey, there's this great, amazing, fun platform that will help us, that helps us. And then your visibility grows from there. That makes sense.
I like that, Michael, that because there is some ability to go, if you're focusing today on creators and they're sharing how they're the ones who are going to be your best marketers going forward, sharing with other creators. I mean, because all of them share so much with each other. So, which just might be an opportunity there.
And Joanna, your origin story of Creative Fear is around Breland and like the ultimate like influencer, right? Like that was your origin story and why you created it, correct?
And he started his own separate brand, RLM Travelux, a luxury traveling platform, just like the, yeah. A lot of people do in their course of things.
And one other thing I like, that you're not disregarding the audience. So yes, you have the customer, which is the client or the brand, but then the audience in this perspective is very important, because if the audience is not engaging with the announcements or the information that you're putting out there, or you have the wrong audience. So if you have a bunch of 12-year-olds responding to it, that's not going to help your client. So I think that is a customer segment, even though they're not paying, they're not the client, they're still very important in this decision process, because if your audience is on TikTok, that's going to be quite different audience than Facebook. So
This is great. Professor Clark, you want Joanna to move on to value prop?
Yeah, this will kind of give us an idea. Okay, now that we understand what the needs are, which is that basically content creators and brands need to promote, let's now talk about what's the fit, what value to provide, how well do you do that. So let's talk a little bit about what you're doing on the value propositions.
Okay. So the value to brands is effortless, fast, simple, quality promotions media on a trusted media outlet. Value to audience, way to keep up and learn with brands in an appealing, fun way. And so I don't know, Canvanizer had like problems. You put your problems in solving. I'm not sure if this is exactly, if I did this right, but I added like problems and solution.
I think that's fine. You can read them out. That help us out. I didn't know that was part of that feature of that. Yeah, we usually don't put it there. We just put the value prop. But yeah, read those out too.
I wasn't sure because I use this just to help a little.
Yeah.
Okay, so if a brand wants media press, the ability to get media without a lot of upfront time, back forth effort. If a brand wants to reach customers, ability to reach customers without the effort and cost of ads. If a brand wants outreach, ability to amplify brand story, news, and products in an easy way. And with audience, if the audience problem we are helping solve. If audience wants to see everything about a brand and what a brand is about in one single place, fast and easy. And then creators. So we're back to, if I kind of I guess the feature, if the ability, this is a feature again, I guess not a user. So I'm not sure if I should include it in the value prop. Is that where you would put a feature?
Well, yeah, a feature is the technical. It is usually we have features as ways of solving the problem, so it could fit within the value proposition. Yeah, I mean that's a possibility. So usually you have like a core product with features, right? So if you have Microsoft Word, for example, the product is a word processing tool, right? That's what most people use it for. But spell check is a feature for people who are horrible at spelling when doing word processing. So like that's an added value proposition for a certain segment of your customers who need assistance. And so you add little features. Now, one thing with tech companies you got to be very careful about is it's really easy to start trying to add a lot of features. And we've made this mistake in tech companies I've started where we add features that nobody uses. Because we thought, instead of going out and doing customer discovery, we thought that it would be a good feature to solve people's problems. And what we end up doing is spending lots of money on features, tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars on features that end up being very rarely used. So I think oftentimes you start with the core and then you can add features, but be very careful you don't spend all your money on features that nobody uses. Yeah.
Okay. So then I think what I call the product, I think this is the real value prop, what I call product. I think that's what it might be. Like, for example, like real value prop might be the product, which is all in one brand page, like a website plus marketing promotions in one for a fraction of the time cost. And then it goes into features, ability to publish press releases, events, videos, songs, links, photo galleries, event recaps, and more. And then an ability to list items for promotion. So I think that would be the value prop.
Yeah, we don't usually put products here necessarily, only when we're doing business model canvas, right? Because what we're trying to capture is the value, and the value can be captured in a product, but it's oftentimes captured in much more than just a product. And you are getting to that, right? Your thing is basically a platform, but there's a lot more complexity to it. And anyway, so it's okay to talk about products because oftentimes we think our value is entirely encompassed in a product, but oftentimes there's much more breadth than just a product, right? So why we buy certain things in certain ways from certain companies is much more than the product, right? Like if you buy a box of cereal from Target, it's not the box of cereal. That's the product. The value you usually buy while you're going to Target and shopping there has much more.
I have a question. Just because I want to understand how she would use that advice. What does that mean specifically to Joanna? Because like the way I'm looking at it is, here's kind of what we do, who we do it for, and then here are all of our features, right? So I understand the feedback of there's a lot of feature-rich stuff that she's putting in here. But on the other hand, what would you say then here? What is the answer of what's the value proposition if she's not going to talk about her product? Is it truly one place? Yeah, please go ahead. I want to know.
So when I always think of it is, so the problem we talk a lot about the why somebody buys. There is a lot of what in there, but for example, when we think of when we think of Uber, right? The value propositions, the reason why we buy and how well we fit is related to the service provided by Uber. So why we buy Uber is to get a ride. We need transportation. And there's different personas we talk about a lot, right? So one of the personas might be we're traveling, we're in an airport and we need to get somewhere. Or another persona might be somebody, we're gonna go out with our friends to the bar tonight. So there's different reasons why we might do Uber. Now the value is the ride, right? But so that's what we're trying to solve. And if we say, hey, that's the value proposition meets our needs, then all the other pieces come in. The channel is the actual app. So we don't actually when we think of Uber as a product, it's much more complex. It includes other pieces to it that are important, but we don't. I'll give you another example. Let's say your persona for buying Tesla might be, I want a safe car to drive. So your value proposition may include the car, but it also includes safety, right? So you want a 5-star safety rating. But that's not really a product. That's a value proposition. So the point is, products are usually or I should say, value propositions are distributed through your products, but they can also be distributed through services, and it's a much more complex. So that's why we can put products here, but just remember that don't limit yourself to products, because values can also be achieved through services and other combinations of products.
I think. Hey, can I jump in?
Yeah.
So I think like one of the things that I struggled with when we were first learning about the business model canvas was separating what our product and our organization was versus like who our customers are, the people that will pay us and why they'll pay us. And things that can go in the value proposition column can be things like happiness, reputation. There are things that are harder to measure, but they can be like, it's easiest for me to think about it when I think about luxury goods. Like why do you buy those shoes with the red soles? Not because you need shoes, right? You buy, really fancy, expensive shoes because it's a status symbol, or because it makes you feel like you belong to an elite group of people, or because you just really like, think to have things that, are rare. So there are different motivators for those purchases that are part of the value proposition that are less about a feature of a product.
Okay, I want to say that Joanna and Sam, that is so helpful. It makes so much sense. And I want to start with the Uber example for a second. So Joanna, without an H, when we talk about Uber, we don't talk about geolocators or ability to share payments, or like features that are great and super helpful, but we don't talk about that. What we talk about is I need a ride, right? So in this case, it's creators want to make money. Like the things that you're adding are the things they can sell, and like the ways that they can be amplified and distributed. But it's like the value proposition is helping creators make money, or helping creators become known, as far as I'm seeing it. But I'd love to hear what everyone else, like if you had to just put it, like what that means to you without the features, what would you say you're adding?
Yeah, Michael Woods, you have any feedback?
Yeah, I mean, because the value proposition, you're really trying to dive into solving the problem for somebody, and features don't solve problems. They're just I wouldn't call them bells and whistles, but so if I need to promote my brand or my film, I have a problem. I got to get it out there. Making it easy to do it on my mobile phone is a feature, and I think from the age-old aspect of being a car salesman, the luxury brands don't sell you features. They sell you how you feel, how you look, your reputation in that car, because that person has a problem. They want to, for their profession or their status, they have a problem. They want to elevate that, and they need a car to help them. So that's definitely that value proposition that's much harder to, like Joanna was talking about, was it's to put a label on there. How much is this going to cost? You can't, value happiness or how I feel every morning and, with a product. So
but
that value is perfectly here.
I think the big thing here is that what's hard is that most of the time our value propositions are delivered through a product. But it's not always the case. So like we get to those, but what we're focusing on here is what are the value propositions, not how do we get those value propositions necessarily, because there's some complexity and nuance and different things that go into it, like people are saying, right? So
But
our
some of
value
it's in
proposition
here.
might be like, I want prestige. I get that through a product called a car.
Yeah.
And so that's where we want to be very careful. And it's okay to put ideas of products here, but just be careful we're not focusing on the product is kind of the delivery mechanism, one of the delivery mechanisms for value propositions.
So specifically to help Joanna, I think, it can be things like when I hear you talk about your vision for what you want to accomplish, it's like, accessible, to organizations that normally can't, and maybe you don't want this many words, but organizations that normally can't afford, like you can have this higher level of service for less money, or you can have a system automate a solution that you would normally have to have a whole team for. So like then the value propositions are like have us, save money by, having a smaller team, or, do your promotion faster because many of the features are automated by the system. So your things are like you're saving time and money are really two of your key value propositions.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because what another comment I was going to make, when you go up to those, say the brand problems are, so I'd put those in the customer persona a little bit, right? And there should be a one-to-one match, right? Because let's go up to the value to brands. You say effortless, fast, simple, quality promotions. But when I go to the customer segment, I don't see any, I need fast, simple, high quality content. And so there's not a one-to-one relationship between what you said your customers are and your value to brands. So those should be directly related. So, but you do it, you just kind of, you said it you put it down below in brand problems. If brands want the ability to media without a lot of upfront time, right? So that is actually a customer segment. So go up a little bit, scroll up just a little bit. That second, brand problems we are helping to solve. So your customer should say, I'm looking for creators who need to promote their thing with little upfront time.
Right. So that's
and
why
our value proposition is an effortless way to promote your, something like that. So that would be a one-to-one connection between what you see as your customer and the value you're providing. Does that help?
I think that's super excellent, Sam. And it's a good reason to be really specific in your customer list. Like my customers are organizations that don't have a department to do this, right? So they're not necessarily a large brand or a small brand. They're just a category of, groups that can't afford to do this, to hire a whole group to do this yet, for example. And you don't necessarily have to label them as small, medium, or large. They're just whatever type of organization it is that they can't do this service that your product is going to provide.
And so I can share something very quickly with you guys if you want to look at. This is actually, and it's not perfect, I think, but go ahead, I'll share this. This is like an Uber value proposition canvas, which is a slightly different tool. But on the right side, we look at our customer and we look at their needs. Like people without a vehicle and need a ride. That's kind of the general value proposition we're going for. But we look at, they want to have safe travel. They want to trust a clean vehicle, things like that. And then we come over here to what our company's value propositions start to be. And where I've drawn lines like driver rating. So Uber provides a driver rating because there's a certain amount of value that people put into trust. So the value, and because there's a line there, we have a value proposition. Now, there are other things on this chart over here that I don't have a relationship with. So that means a couple different things. One, it's a feature we should not build because nobody wants it. Or there might be an opportunity for future growth. And that's usually, let me back up. If it's over here and there's not a line drawn to the right, from left to right, that's a feature we should not build. If there's something on the right that we don't have on the left, that's a future opportunity. So it's like, hey, we're not doing something over here yet, but that might be an opportunity for growth. So we do this kind of drawing back and forth to say, hey, how can we build trust for the customer? Well, we could have driver ratings, we could have reviews. So let's put those into our thing, because then when why will they buy Uber over a taxi? Because they have more trust in it, for example. Anyway, so that's just quick.
That was great. And Joanna, you did that for us, the value proposition canvas, and it was really detailed, and it actually helped us out.
And it was useful to do it when I was overwhelmed by the value proposition, by the business model canvas, when that was really new and I didn't really understand it. Just to take one piece and only work on that one piece was really useful. Same thing with customer personas. There's some tools that help you can just think about who is your customer, and just thinking through that, because who's using your system in a lot of cases is not necessarily who's paying you. Who's interested in your product, who supports your product, who's excited by your product isn't necessarily who's going to pay you all the time. And so, especially in these multi-sided marketplaces and social media, things that have social media aspects. So it's good to work through both of those things.
Yeah. So I think just look for those one-to-one relationships. And then value propositions should always be measurable, meaning there's a way to communicate them fairly well. So we should have to be able to measure them. I've shared a little bit. I'll just kind of give this is Tesla's Model S website, right? So when you're thinking of a car, what are the things that are values to you? Well, an electric vehicle, you typically there's a value of range. They measure range. So it's 396 miles. So you can understand, you can compare and contrast between competitors, because your value proposition that you're solving is range in an electric vehicle. Another value proposition that Tesla focuses on in Model S anyway is performance. So how do they measure performance? Well, they do it in a 0 to 60 mile per hour test, and they say you have 1.99 seconds. So that's performance. Top speed is also a performance measure, and horsepower. But you go down through their marketing, and you'll see all their value propositions, kind of technology and safety. And so, let's go to their safety. I don't know if they still do this. You're going to see these things, right? So design for efficiency. They talk about, again, measures, right? They tell you the lowest drag car on Earth. I like the Earth part because, with Elon Musk and Mars, right? He's doing those little plays with his marketing. But so range is a value proposition. You see all the range. Protection, so safety. A lot of people are value proposition for cars is safety. Almost every car sold today is like a 5-star, because nobody's going to buy a 2-star car. And so they're highlighting that as in ways to do it. And like a safety rating is an example. I don't know if I shared that with you guys. I've been dragging it around, but this is an example. So, but they measure all the value propositions, and then they share those so you can compare and contrast. So that's another thing to think about is, are my value propositions something I can measure so that when somebody comes to my website? So when you say, for example, that our website is fast, well, what does that mean? How do you measure that so that you can communicate that your platform is faster than another platform or more efficient than another platform? So
I like that. And Professor Clark, is there like a number you usually, like, do you have like 3 value props that you have, or you just making sure you just have that one-to-one, right, between the customer and the value prop?
So when I started business, I'd always look and say, what are the 3 most important value propositions you're going to start with, right? And that's going to identify the most important customers. Because again, you're going to, like, if you go back to Tesla, they have a lot of things in there. They have technology, they have safety, they have the autopilot stuff. There's all kinds of things that they're doing, but they're much further along as a business than usually a startup is. And so usually focus on the 3 most important value propositions, and those should be the front of your webpage, right? So when somebody goes to your webpage, you say, we promote creators fast and to more people that are your target market or something. And then you have to say, how do you measure that so that you can prove? Like, that would be something to consider in a value proposition.
And Joanna Pantages, that value proposition canvas, we went over that a lot too. And Joanna was on that too. We might actually just do a session on that, but it was so helpful. Because it's kind of like that's like you can get in the weeds on that, but then when people give you feedback, like really, these are the 3 things you should work on, right? We had a lot in there, right? But we always pulled out like mentoring, content, right? That was it, like mentoring, content. That's all. Professor Clark, thank you so much. Any last thoughts you want to give Joanna Pantages and I know Joanna, thanks for being so transparent with everything too.
Yeah, thanks for doing that. You're the I'll let her have any last question.
Yeah.
No, that was really, really useful. I just wish they put those 2 columns together because that makes it so much easier to think about it that way with like the back forth. But they're on separate columns. They should change the business canvas.
Switch.
They trick you because you typically you'll look at a business model or a business a value proposition canvas. But yeah, those things. The reason why value propositions there in the middle is because everything on the left side of the business model is to create value propositions. And then everything on the right side of the business model is to distribute your value to your customers. So channels and things like that are to get those value propositions to your customers. And then on the left side is how do I actually make those possible? And so how do you make those possible in your case? It's through a website. Like that's the starting point, right? You have some type of platform. I shouldn't say website, a platform of some type. That's how you make those value propositions available. And then they access it through their app or phone or something to access the value you're providing to them.
Got it.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts, John Pantages?
No, this is really useful. I feel more direction. I don't really, have any more thoughts. How about Stuart? Anybody else?
Stuart actually gave you some props too. Stuart, you can unmute yourself.
Sorry, I kind of covered up in some paperwork right now, but I just found this whole presentation very interesting. And thank you, Michael Wood, for early on giving us a bit of that introduction. It was awesome hearing from you and learning about your projects as well. And to, Curling and Sam, thank you guys for always, showing a lot of different interesting inputs when it comes to value propositions. Found it very useful today. Thank you.
And thank you, Tripty. I see Burb. Can you hear me okay from Facepop?
I can.
Thanks so much. This was incredibly helpful.
No, thank you, Tripty. Burb gave me thumbs up. He gave me thumbs up. All right. Last thing too, Professor Clark, anything else on, I know we actually sent out that whole information about that full-time position at the Innovation Hub. I still sent it out to the network, but any other information on that, or are we still waiting?
There's a couple of things will be coming out shortly, but we did launch our new veteran entrepreneurship program. Maybe I can connect with Michael a little bit about and come and share what he's doing with them, doing too with that group. But that's a new program we have at CSUSM for our veteran students to kind of get access to learning about, and we're not necessarily asking them to start businesses, but we're letting anybody who's interested in entrepreneurship in any way join the cohort and run through the program and get access to resources and things on campus as they work towards that. So, there's probably still, if there's a veteran at CSUSM or if you want to get involved with that program, let us know. So appreciate it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'll get the information from you and I'll promote it tomorrow during the open house. And we've got a couple live broadcasts and a couple key players in the veteran community that this would be perfect to intersect with.
Yeah, maybe we can get them on one of the podcasts or here on Tech School over the next few months. So great.
Yeah, I'll send you an email.
All right. Take care, everybody. Till next week.